In episode 6 of House of David opens with David singing and playing his lyre at Gibeah, unaware of all the chaos stirred up by his rejection of Merab in episode 5 returning to the palace. He attempts to apologize to Merab, but is reprimanded and warned of dire consequences. However, when he met Saul, he was surprised to be greeted with a degree of sympathy. Saul, remembering that he too had married for love, offers to allow David to marry Michal if he proves his loyalty by destroying the Philistine forge and personally murdering and circumcising 100 men. David readily accepts the challenge and agrees not to tell anyone but Michal. After making this decision, David agrees to play the harp. Unfortunately, Saul thinks this will be the last time before departing. Stopping in Michal's way, David asks her if she would still like to get married if she could. Confused, Michal admits that this happens. Upon receiving this confirmation, David convinces her to trust him and leaves. Eliab, still haunted by memories of his participation in the murder of his neighbor, is busy training when David stops by and reveals Saul's proposal. Eliab accuses David of killing him on his way to the throne, despite David's insistence that he only kills his enemies. Understanding Eliab's desire to die, David orders him to stay so as not to endanger the lives of others. David gathers a few chosen warriors, including Abinadab, Uriah, and Oz, equipped with the iron weapons of the sword god, and departs for Philistia. As they leave, Joab, who was also left behind, notices Doeg sending messages by dove and becomes suspicious. The message soon reached Achish, who smiled at the chance to trap David. On the way to the Philistines, people wonder why David was only allowed to accompany him with a small number of soldiers, but David dismisses their concerns, insisting that he would rather have an elite force than 1,000. During his journey, David speaks with Uriah. Uriah reveals that he is a Hittite and once lived in Egypt, but decided to remain in Israel because, unlike the stone gods of the nations, Israel's God is real. That night Michal met Joab in Gibeah. Joab was concerned about how Abner sent David with a small force to stop him. Joab finds Doeg in his hideout and asks him about the homing pigeon. Doeg tries to dodge the question by claiming that Joab doesn't want to know and that it will be in his own interest to get Michal if things go according to plan. Undaunted, Joab finds Jonathan and exposes the plot. Meanwhile, David and his men attack the Philistine forge and find it empty but still burning. But it's a trap. Dagoner and the Philistines lock them up and set the room on fire. David and his men, realizing that they had been betrayed, searched in vain for a way out. David moved quickly and ordered the men to throw explosives and blow up the door. Realizing that the Philistines were pursuing him, he sent his men in one direction and hurried down the slope in the other direction, finding himself surrounded by the entire force of the Philistines led by Achish. Achish orders the Philistines to capture David. After some of them were easily destroyed, Dagoner ordered the rest to wait and fought David one-on-one with Dagoner's spear while Anchises looked on, not allowing his men to intervene even after Dagoner's death. Achish quickly realized that the God of Israel was really with David, not Saul. David reveals Saul's betrayal and encourages him to defect, but when David refuses, he orders his men to capture Saul. However, before David can be defeated, Joab and Jonathan arrive with cavalry and break through the flank of the Philistine army while David leads his men in a frontal attack. After defeating the Philistines, David and his friends return to Gibeah, angry at the betrayal. David breaks into Saul's throne room and reveals that he has been betrayed, and Doeg flees. David threw a sack full of Philistine foreskins at Saul's feet, 200 instead of the 100 Saul had requested, and demanded Michal. When David finds her in the garden, bloody and beaten, he embraces Michal and asks her to marry him. And she says, yes.